Okay. It's a nice day out, actually. The sun's coming out. It's supposed to rain today, but not till later. Tim was talking to me and saying that he went fishing yesterday when it was like in the 50s. He went ice fishing, and they got 18 crappies. Still had a good 30 inches of ice, solid ice. The shorelines were getting a little slushy, but they were able to get out there on the ice with a side-by-side. So, still good to go. Thought about going today, but laser focused on this mission. So, since I last talked to you, I did cut the top of the tunnel off because I'm going to raise it up, and I figured out what was happening with the studs. So here I will show you. Here it is, all butchered. And once I cut this top of this tunnel off, I could see exactly what was happening. Because the track was positioned precisely over the front drive cogs, the white drive cogs, and the piano hinge that I used in the back to join the two pieces of track together was perfectly positioned over the top of this front drive axle, and I instantly saw what the problem was. The timing on the track was off. So when I cut the track and I went to splice it together, I didn't get it spliced properly so that when this piano hinge would get to the tooth of the cog, the tooth was not dropping into the slot. It was actually riding up underneath the piano hinge and causing the track to bump up. And that explains that sound that I kept hearing, ka-chunk, ka-chunk, ka-chunk. Every time the piano hinge got to the drive cog, the tooth was not meshing into a slot, and it was causing the track to hump up, and then the studs were hitting the tunnel. So now, not only do I have the top of the tunnel cut off, and I'm still going to raise it up because I already cut it, and it still looks like, even now with the teeth meshed into the track the way it should be, it still looks like I'm going to have clearance issues with the studs, especially if the track is doing any sort of flopping at all. So I'm still going to raise the tunnel up. But now I have to get, when I sew the track back together, I have to get it done precisely. Now you can see how damaged the hinge is. See how it's all bent up? It's just a monkeyed up mess. So I'm not going to reuse that hinge. I was actually talking to one of my customers yesterday, or a couple days ago, at one of my stops, and he drives truck for a sand and gravel company, and I was telling him about my problems with the track and sewing the track back together and using a piano hinge, and he goes, I got the perfect solution. He says, we have these great big, I don't know if you've ever seen a sand pit or a gravel pit. You know, they got those big, long conveyors that run the crushed rock up and dump it onto a pile. He goes, they make a special clip that we use to attach. If we break a conveyor belt or something like that, or we rip it, we cut it, and then we attach the two ends of the belt together with these special stainless steel clips that have little bolts in them. I said, yeah, that's awesome. I said, but will it go around a pulley? And he goes, yeah, they make them in different lengths, from real big long ones down to short ones. I'm like, wow, that sounds like the cat's behind right there. Sounds like exactly what I need. I said, well, what do they cost? You know, so he looked it up, track clip or something it was called, or belt clip, that might have been it. And there was a company that makes them. They were like $200 for a pail of 20. I'm like, no, too rich for my blood. I'll use door hinges. And he goes, hold on a second. He called his supervisor at work, and they got a whole bunch of them, obviously, because they repair conveyor belts all the time. And his supervisor said he'd give me a handful for nothing. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? So I got a bunch of belt clips coming that are designed specifically for this sort of thing, for free. Well, I'm going to kick him a 6-pack of beer, but pretty much for nothing. And he's going to give me the installation tool. I guess it's got like a drill bit that has like a punch cutter on it, so that when you drill into the belt, you know, like when I drilled into this belt with just a drill bit, I ended up with a gnarled up hole. This thing will actually cut a nice round hole for the bolt to go through. Why that's important, I don't know. But that, it comes with the tool. So I'm pretty jacked about that, but that won't be here until next Wednesday. Today's Saturday. So the mission today, should I choose to accept it, and I do, even though I'd like to be running this right now on the ice today, is I am still going to pull out all of these studs, and I'm going to put washers underneath them. My last video, I mentioned that I did that. Where did I? Hold on. Here. That's how long my stud is. Right there. And I determined, and I don't have enough washers, so I have to go to my farm store and buy. That's a nice thing about my farm store is they sell them in bulk. But I determined if I put 3 washers under the head like that, it will bring the stud. I don't have a piece of track, so I'll just use, or cleat, so I'll just use this. How did I have this? Oh, I gotta, it'll bring it out about that far, which is perfect, okay? So, my fear was that right now, the way I have it right now, the studs are sticking up so far out of this track, and this track is all buttery and soft and dry rotted, is that with a lot of studs sticking out of there, the stud's gonna wanna grab the ice and fold like this, and then as it's pulling, the track is now twisted, and I could rip the stud, the head of the stud, right out of the soft track. I mean, that happens on new snowmobiles with brand new tracks, because this head is all that's holding it on the inside of the track. So let's look here once. You know, here's my section of track with the cleats in it, and you see how high up they're sticking right now? I want to try to get this down to where that stud is just barely poking out above that cleat. Then there's no lateral force when it's digging, and the washers under the head will hopefully keep it from wanting to twist and rip itself out of the track. So the bottom washer is going to be a flat, like a fender washer, like this, which provides more surface area under the track. See, spreads the footprint out, and then the rest of the washers will be this size. So one of these at the base, under the head of the stud. There's the head of the stud, so that'll go under there. See how much more wider it is? Although I see now I'm going to have interference with my cog openings. Yeah, so even though I'm putting a tunnel box on here to raise up the tunnel so the cleats have a place to go, or the studs have a place to ride, I'm still going to drop them down because I don't want to stress this old track any more than I have to. So the plan of attack today is to pull these studs out and do that, and also build a frame out of angle iron to raise the tunnel, make the tunnel box out of. As a result, I'm going to have to eliminate my engine mounting bolts. I'm going to have to get longer ones, because if I raise this whole section up, and these are all tack welded underneath here. I tack welded every single head because it's a carriage bolt on the underside. So I'm going to knock all these out of here, put new bolts in, taller bolts, because the motor's now going to sit up about another 1/2 inch to an inch higher. So while I'm at Fleet Farm, I'll get some of those. Here's the section of tunnel that I cut out of there, and you can see what was happening. The studs were just digging right in, and it looks like in some cases, well, here they dug right into the metal, but in some cases they didn't even, they just scratched the paint, but it was enough to stop that track in its tracks, and no pun intended. So yeah, that's the mission for today. So let's get cracking, see what happens.